A frightening scene played out on this Inglewood home security cameras. It captured the moments a suspected gang member ran away from a barrage of gunfire past startled children who had been playing in the driveway.
He is running like somebody want to shoot him.
One of those children is Consuela Sanchez's 6-year-old nephew. They were not hurt. She says the driver of this gold car stopped in the middle of 112th Street around 6:30 last night, and that's when several people started shooting. Apparently bullets were just flying up and down this street. Take a look at the van behind me. You can see several rounds struck that vehicle. And then further down the street, that's where the teen boy, believed to be about 13 years old, was hit by a stray bullet.
Mob runs into an Inglewood convenience store and goes in a wild rampage. Police say about 50 to 70 juveniles took part in this raid at a 7-Eleven store on Century Boulevard last week. It's not clear just how much merchandise that they made off with or how much money they took. Many of the teens could be seen leaving the store on bicycles.
Identity. Search and arrest warrants were served in Inglewood, Hawthorne, and Los Angeles. More than 200 law enforcement agents and officers took part. These are the suspects they were after. The ones with their faces covered are in custody. 4 are still on the loose. Here are the mugshots of 10 of the 14 members of the so-called family street gang that were arrested this week. According to the FBI and Inglewood PD, these are the shot callers for the gang that law enforcement describes as violent and doing business with affiliates in 10 states.
Inglewood, California, home to the Forum and SoFi Stadium, has produced cultural heavyweights like Mack 10, Ice Cube, Issa Rae, Tyra Banks, Omarion, and Paul Pierce, even as the city's streets forged tough gang lineages. By the 80s, Inglewood became a battleground for blood and Crip factions, with sets like the Inglewood Family Gangster Bloods and Osage Legend Crips evolving from neighborhood protection to organized crime. This episode traces the modern crackdowns, the Inglewood Family multi-state gun and drug pipeline, the Osage Legend Crips storefront crack operation, the triple deletion case of Selvin Fabian Salazar, the $6 million luxury jewelry spree led by Keith Marvel Walton. It's the story of a city where fame and federal indictments share the same map, and where community and law enforcement now fight to redefine what Inglewood stands for.
Take a look. Here are the mugshots of 10 of the 14 members of the so-called family street gang that were arrested this week. According to the FBI and Inglewood PD, these are the shot callers for the gang that law enforcement describes as violent and doing business with affiliates in 10 states. It's all about drugs and guns, according to Inglewood PD and the FBI. It's part of their efforts to rid Inglewood and nearby communities of violent street gangs.
In the course of the investigation, task force investigators working with the Inglewood Police Department participated in controlled purchases during which they acquired firearms and other narcotics.
With the new football stadium under construction and maybe a Clippers arena coming to the city of Inglewood, we asked the mayor, is this all part of an effort to clean up the city before those are complete? He said no. He simply, along with the FBI, they want to get rid of the street gangs here in Inglewood and the surrounding areas.
Federal and local authorities announced a coordinated takedown of 14 alleged members and associates of an Inglewood-based street gang known as The Family, describing it as a violent, multi-state pipeline for guns and narcotics. According to investigators, the crew moved drugs while also trafficking firearms that later surfaced in crimes across roughly 10 states. The case grew out of a long-running joint task force probe led by federal drug agents working with Inglewood PD and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles. Undercover officers and confidential sources made controlled buys of both guns and dope, and agents documented interstate trips, stash locations, and hand-to-hand sales before a series of early morning arrests capped the case. A federal grand jury returned 6 separate indictments, charging the defendants with a mix of conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, possession with intent to distribute, using a communication facility to facilitate drug trafficking, dealing firearms without a license, illegal gun possession by prohibited persons, and, where applicable, possessing a firearm in furtherance of a drug trafficking crime. Officials characterized the enterprise as networked rather than top-down. Some defendants allegedly specialized in sourcing firearms, others in moving product and cash, and still others in brokering sales to allied crews outside California.
The FBI and Inglewood PD investigated what was being produced and distributed out of this so-called convenience store. It's only a few blocks away from where the LA Rams' new stadium is being built.
On numerous occasions throughout the investigation, law enforcement officers saw OLC gang members participate in hand-to-hand drug sales in and around the Inglewood area.
This is exclusive video of federal agents processing the suspects they picked up late last night and early this morning. The agents' faces have been blurred to protect their identity. Search and arrest warrants were served in Inglewood, Hawthorne, and Los Angeles. More than 200 law enforcement agents and officers took part. These are the suspects they were after. The ones with their faces covered are in custody. 4 are still on the loose. According to the grand jury indictment, the suspects would take the drugs from this storefront and deliver them to places like the Social Security office in Inglewood, where they'd meet customers.
In August 2018, federal and local authorities executed a pre-dawn sweep that targeted the Osage Legend Crips, an Inglewood South Los Angeles set investigators said had evolved into a drug, manufacturing and distribution enterprise protected by violence. A federal grand jury charged roughly 15 defendants, 10, arrested during the sweep with conspiracy to manufacture and distribute drugs, maintaining a drug-involved premises, possessing firearms in furtherance of drug trafficking, and being felons in possession of firearms. At the center of the case was a small storefront on South Prairie Avenue that, according to the indictment, doubled as a cooking and packaging site where powder coke was converted, bundled for street sales, and dispatched to customers. Investigators said the Osage Legend Crips members coordinated deliveries to public sites, used coded communications and lookouts, and enforced their territory with intimidation and gunplay to protect drugs, proceeds, and routes from rivals. Agents seized firearms and narcotics tied to the operation and alleged the crew relied on a blend of retail-style distribution and classic gang tactics armed security, rapid car-to-hand drops, and the use of a seemingly legitimate business as cover. Prosecutors emphasized that the enterprise model, rather than isolated street deals, drove the charging strategy and exposed defendants to stiff federal penalties. On the lead narcotics conspiracy counts, defendants faced mandatory minimums of 10 years and up to life in federal prison, with additional consecutive time possible on firearm and furtherance charges. On July 31, 2018, in a mobile home park in Gardena, California, Selvin Fabian Salazar opened fire at a vehicle in which Dolores Sanchez was seated as the driver. He also shot and wounded Saith Pedraza, a passenger who would later die from his injuries in 2020. Investigators say Salazar believed his pregnant ex-girlfriend, Ana Ortiz, had set him up for an ambush by rival gang members. After the initial shots, Salazar turned the weapon on Ortiz, striking her in the neck as she sat in the vehicle with Sanchez. Salazar then forced Francisco Montes and Montes' wife into their car and instructed Montes to drive him to a friend's house. During the ride on the 710 freeway southbound on ramp from Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, Salazar ordered the car to stop, shot and deleted Montes in the back of the head, and attempted to delete Montes' wife, though his gun malfunctioned. Salazar fled, but was arrested the following day by Los Angeles County Sheriff's homicide detectives. In September 2024, a jury in Torrance Superior Court convicted Salazar of 3 counts of first-degree deletion, Sanchez, Montes, Pedraza, 2 counts of attempted deletion, Ortiz and Montes' wife, 1 count of witness intimidation, 1 count of carjacking, and 1 count of being a felon in possession of a firearm. The jury also found true the special circumstance of multiple deletions. With this ruling in hand, on October 23, 2024, Judge Scott T. Millington sentenced Salazar to 3 consecutive life terms, without the possibility of parole for the 3 deletions, plus approximately 21 years and 4 months for the remaining charges. Millington characterized the crime as one of the most gruesome, unjust, unjustified cases he had encountered in his 2-decade career, in part because one victim, Montes, had been his friend. The sentence ensures that Salazar will remain in prison for the rest of his life. Throughout the sentencing hearing, family members of the victims addressed the court. Olga Pedraza, sister of Saith Pedraza and longtime girlfriend of Sanchez, forgave Salazar for my own sanity, but told him, "I will never forget what you did." Other relatives expressed their pain, anger, and disbelief that their loved one's me. They're in what they described as completely unprovoked, gang-driven violence. Salazar made a brief statement apologizing to the families, but also stated there were things left unsaid you don't know. Judge Millington rejected that as inadequate, issued the life without parole verdict, and denied Salazar's motions for a new trial or removal of his prior strike convictions.
Keith Marvel Walton, a senior member of the Inglewood family Gangster Bloods, was sentenced to 55 years in federal prison for leading a violent robbery crew that stole roughly $6 million in luxury watches and jewelry from stores across Southern California. Between 2014 and 2016, Walton organized and directed a series of daytime smash-and-grab robberies in busy malls and shopping centers, where his crew often stormed stores, shattered glass display cases, and fled with Rolex, Audemars Piguet, and other high-end timepieces. The crimes were executed with military-style coordination, using lookouts, getaway cars, and hammers to break showcases within seconds. Prosecutors said Walton personally recruited participants, provided firearms and vehicles, and arranged fencing of the stolen merchandise. During several heists, shots were fired to intimidate employees and security guards. The robberies left shoppers traumatized and caused millions in losses to jewelry retailers across the region. Walton's leadership role and violent history, including a prior federal robbery conviction, led prosecutors to label him one of the most dangerous career criminals to appear in federal court. After a 5-week trial, a jury found him guilty of conspiracy to commit Hobbs Act robbery, armed robbery, and firearm offenses. District Judge Cormac Carney described the robberies as terrifying and said Walton's actions traumatized victims for the rest of their lives. He imposed a 55-year sentence, calling Walton a prolific, incorrigible criminal. 19 other defendants connected to the same robbery network were also convicted. Walton's lieutenants Jamison Lafferst and Robert Wesley Johnson received sentences of 22 years and 8 months and 22 years respectively, while lower-level members received lesser prison terms depending on their roles. The case closed one of Southern California's largest coordinated jewelry store robbery sprees, highlighting the intersection between organized gang activity and high-value retail crime.
Inglewood has always been a city of contrast bright lights and hard nights, where Grammy winners and gang leaders sometimes grew up blocks apart. The takedowns and sentences chronicled here tell a deeper story of transformation. From federal raids targeting the Inglewood family Bloods to the Osage Legend Crips drug bust and the chilling case of Selvin Salazar's triple deletion, law enforcement has turned Inglewood into a symbol of modern policing, using RICO laws, gun tracing, and federal gang statutes to dismantle crews that once seemed untouchable. Yet beyond the arrests and prison time, Inglewood continues to rebuild its image through community programs, youth sports, and creative renaissance. New development, new music, and the presence of SoFi Stadium and the Clippers' Intuit Dome have reshaped the landscape once dominated by neighborhood wars. Still, the lessons remain. Power built on fear crumbles when faced with federal precision, and every generation must decide whether to carry the flag of the past or create something new. The story of Inglewood isn't just about gangs or fame, it's about a city that refuses to be defined by either, forever walking the line between legacy and redemption.